Hey guys, this is going to be a breakdown of Pereira versus Rountree. This is anticipation for the upcoming UFC event between Pereira versus Ankalaev. So let's get going. Right here, you're going to see Rountree kind of blitz forward with a 1-3-2. That's a pretty good combo, especially for a southpaw. It's always a good one to go for. I actually think Ankalaev's going to try to pressure forward and do something similar for most of his fight. The problem with Pereira is that you're always going to get countered by a guy who hits really, really hard. So coming forward like that, Rountree had success because he was blitzing in. Ankalaev tends to kind of walk in. He doesn't blitz in as much. So I do wonder how effective that'll be. But Ankalaev's also a lot taller and a lot bigger. Here, what you're going to see is Pereira hitting an outside calf kick real cleanly. That's a shot that I can see, again, Pereira landing a lot on Ankalaev. Ankalaev kind of got his legs pretty tore up against this fight with Jean. I don't know how much that he's gotten better at checking those, but Pereira is probably the best in MMA at hitting those low kicks on either stance, southpaw or traditional. Here, you're going to see Khalil blitz forward and start with the left hand. Kick from the right. Boom, and come around with the hook. Pereira has been susceptible to southpaws in the opposite stance coming up over the top or straight with the rear hand, just because his style tends to be very lean back, very open and wide, so those shots come right down to center, and it can be hard to get your head off the center line when you're kind of in the position that he's in, so he does get hit with these. But the danger is that you're always coming in to the possible counter strike if somebody hits like Pereira does. Here you're going to see Khalil kind of throw a lazy jab and get countered with the right hand. Nice straight right. This is another shot that's always available for each person when you're facing orthodox versus southpaw or vice versa. Normally the jab is hard to land in the same stance just because the jab hand always runs into each other. So when you're dealing with a southpaw and you're orthodox, the lead hands kind of run into each other. It means the rear hand lines up really straight. So when you put your lead hand out like that, kind of with no intention of landing it, you're kind of putting your chin open to the counter rear hand, and that's what he got right there. Here's another one of Pereira's outside leg kicks that he lands really easily. Super slick. Real nice and quick. He is going to be a problem, I think, for anybody with that. That is just such a fast technique, and it's so hard to stop, and it does so much damage to guys and slows them down. Khalil's footworks look really good in his first round and in the second, and then by the third and fourth, he just slows down so much from the calf kicks and the jabs. Pereira is going to throw a right roundhouse kick to the body on the opposite stance. This is always super effective. Again, Pereira hits very heavy, so when he does make contact, it tends to be very effective, tends to be very heavy. So boom, right there. That is a heavy shot. And again, it's a really fast and easy shot on the opposite stance. And Pereira throws kicks. Ankalaev doesn't tend to throw as many kicks. He tends to just box. So I do think that puts him at a little bit of a disadvantage in this situation. Once he gets you concerned about his rear side, he'll immediately just go back to chipping you down. So he goes to the calf kick right away. Again, really good setup. Just constantly make him worry about your rear side and then touch the calf kick, or vice versa. You touch the calf kick, and you make it open up your other side, right? Anytime that somebody gets a little bit worried about one side, it almost always, especially in kickboxing, tends to open the other side to strikes. Here, Khalil is a little bit lazy on the jab. He gets countered, but he doesn't accept the counter. He gets hit, but he comes back with his own strikes. So he's a little lazy with his jab, comes over, and then comes back with the 2-3-2, which is smart. That's what you got to do when you're the shorter guy and you're kind of getting pressured. You got to make him worried about coming in. If he does hit you, you need to make it like, I'm coming back 2 or 3 times. This is a really clean right hook from Khalil. He's going to dip down. This is one of the problems you have with the long guard. You've kind of recently seen this with Izzy getting knocked unconscious. I think long guard's a good guard. It's just a lot of guys follow the hand. They don't follow the shoulder, which means that his left hand in this scenario, this hand right here, is going to follow this hand down. So when that happens, Khalil's going to come up and over the top of it. So he's going to drop it down right there. See how he was chasing the hand and he got caught with that hook, and then he follows up with the 2. Again, smart to do on a southpaw is that when you do hit the lead hand at all, you should almost always follow with the rear hand. And that was a good shot from Khalil. That's something that Ankalaev can certainly do. Here, Khalil's going to blitz forward with the 2-3-2, so cross across. Good strategy. Again, not something I see Ankalaev doing, but this is effective here. So he's going to blitz in real hard here in a second. And comes forward, 2-3-2. I believe he lands the end of there. Sounds like he did. not a bad strategy. It just takes a lot of energy, and this is one of the problems with Pereira. He puts a lot of pressure on you. He keeps you at his range the whole time. You're having to deal with heavy strikes, so anytime he's landing, it really has a heavy effect. And then he'll just fade out because he's so tall. He'll just fade away and he keeps that long guard. So you're kind of always kind of hitting hands and shoulders. And even when you get your clean shot off, a lot of times it's your third shot. So and he's pulling away from it, so you're just not landing it like super hard, right? The times you've seen Pereira get rocked, primarily by Izzy, when he was pressuring forward and he walked into something. When he's able to fade out, he's very hard to hit. He's just such a big guy. What you're going to see here is Pereira's pressure. So Pereira's pressuring forward, he pressures forward, he feints, he pressures forward. It's this non-stop pressure back. Even when you get off the cage, you kind of slide to the side, he just rolls and cuts you right off and then pressures you some more. So the problem with that is not everybody can do it, right? So not everybody can be a pressure fighter. A couple things have to happen. I can be a pressure fighter if I'm kind of like a Marab type where I can cardio you, right? You know you're just going to deal with me nonstop. Or if I'm exceptionally good on timing, or if I hit exceptionally hard. Speed's another one, but it has to be somewhere in those groups, right? There has to be a thing that makes me concerned about your constant pressure. And Alex Pereira's height, his timing, and his power make it very, very difficult to deal with because when he pushes you against the cage, he knows you can't back out anymore. And he's long, so he's always at the range he wants to be now, and you're always having to come into his range to hit him because he's the bigger guy. So his pressure, I think, is one of the big things that really fucks a lot of guys, honestly. It's just the constant state of having to get backed up by this heavy striker that you know can put your lights out at any point. Here, Pereira does a really good job of timing the slip to the inside of the jab and counter with his rear hand. So Khalil throws the jab and he counters with the right there. This is another shot that I could just see him trying to land on Ankalaev. Again, you're always throwing the rear hand against the opposite stance. It's kind of the jab hand at that point. I am surprised Khalil's trying to go for so many jabs to the head on the taller guy in the opposite stance. I don't know if I would be going that route personally, but I guess he feels like he has to set up his right hook. So he has to get his jab going first. Here's another example of Pereira's pressure and kind of what I was talking about. What he'll do is he pressures forward, he pressures you forward, he pressures you forward, he feints, and he makes you kind of freeze up, right? So he gets you past this line on the floor here, the octagon inside the octagon. And what this does is he kind of knows where you can generally go at this point pretty well. And he'll feint, and Khalil kind of ends up biting on a lot of stuff. And he ends up getting a right hand here, if I recall. Yep, nice straight right hand. And then he forces you to lunge into where he is, right? And you can see this puts you in a pretty bad spot. And he's looking for this shot here. Doesn't quite get the left hook. But he's constantly trying to get you right at that range inside his arms so he can kind of corral you, right? So he's like has you inside his arms, inside his range, and then when you're missing, you get hit. Here he goes back to the calf kick again, so he comes to the outside, nice little calf kick. Khalil looks for the counter, doesn't find it. As usual, Alex Pereira kind of fades back. Being the big man, he kind of leans out a lot of stuff. Rountree's lead hand has always had a habit of getting kind of low. He fights southpaw, but he kind of gets into a bit of a Philly position, kind of a, not exactly, but he drops his lead hand a lot. I don't recommend this for fighters that are facing the opposite stance, right? So if you're southpaw, you're facing somebody who's orthodox, and you're dropping your lead hand, a lot of times that opens you for the guy with the higher hand to easily throw his jab. This actually becomes kind of the tail of this fight towards the end because Pereira starts landing his jab a lot more. And I actually think it's that and the calf kicks that really slow Rountree down a lot. Bang. There's the jab over the top. That's the problem with having your jab be low on the same side. It just comes so quick. It's very hard to deal with. Here's the exact same thing again. Boom, jab over the top of the hand, that's low. Again, if you're the opposite stance, especially if you're shorter, you have to fight high hand. Otherwise, you're going to lose the jab exchanges. This is a much better situation from Rountree here. So Rountree kind of ends up getting his hand a lot higher, right? And he ends up blocking basically a jab from the high guard position, right? So we're here. And then he gets this opening because of that, right? Because this hand's kind of out of position. He slips his head off the center line, comes around for the hook to the outside of the head. Here you're going to see Pereira goes to the outside leg again. Just sets up a nice little calf kick. Boom, nice shot. And then this is going to be a good example also of how to use a long guard correctly, right? So it's okay to extend your arms. It's not okay to chase the hands. And so what you're going to see is you're going to see Pereira's arms are nice and high here, right? His arms extended. He's going to extend out and block towards the shoulder. And blocking towards the shoulder prevented that hook from coming around. Here's another example of Khalil being lazy with his hand placement. He's going to keep dropping this front hand a couple times, and that doesn't end up actually getting him the jab. He ends up kind of parrying that, but the next one is the one that's bad. So you can see he just keeps dropping his hand, and Pereira just comes over the top of it. Again, when you're the shorter guy and you're southpaw, that's difficult to deal with, and it's one of the reasons a lot of these jabs start to add up so much. Here, Pereira kind of throws a pretty wide roundhouse kick to the head that Khalil ducks under and actually gets a counter.
Transitions, yes. There's a little bit of awkwardness from the. Oh.
So to me, Pereira was being a little too fancy there. He kind of threw it like a question mark kick, but he came up really high. I almost questioned why he didn't just come up at a hard angle. But I think what he was trying to do was get Khalil to grab at the kick and turn it to a question mark and kick him in the face. Because earlier in the fight, Khalil had grabbed and threw a hook counter off of this. But instead, he kind of missed, and Khalil just ducked it a little bit and came back with the counter and ends up kind of hitting him. I wouldn't say dropping him. It was more of like a balance shot, in my opinion. Here's a good technique from the opposite stance to orthodox is the double rear hand. So you're coming in with the rear hand, and you're going to kind of throw it twice in a row like a jab. So once and then twice. I think that's super effective when you're the opposite stance. Normally, I wouldn't say throwing the rear hand 2 times in a row like double straights is a good idea. But again, we've talked about when you're facing the opposite stance, the rear arm, your rear cross is basically your jab hand. Here's more example of Pereira just being heavy on pressure. He just cuts you off, he pressures you back. He just keeps pushing you farther and farther back. And he's always making you feel like he's right in his range, and he's making you feel like you're not in your range. And he cuts you off, and he just does the same thing over and over again. And this is a lot to deal with. He's not really doing a whole lot, but it's just that constant feel of having somebody in front of you that's trying to hit you that you know can really hit hard. And again, you can see when Khalil has to return there, he has to return 3, 4, 5 punches in a row just to land one. And people are like, yeah. And I'm like, man, by the time you're hitting that last shot, there's just not as much on it. So, like, he's pulling away from these shots. He got hit, but it just doesn't, it's not going to have the same effect as if he was getting hit with the first or second shot. Here what you're going to see is Alex has kind of gotten lulled to sleep. He thinks it's just going to be a boxing match. And then Khalil ends up throwing a head kick, and he lands that. That's a pretty clean shot. And Alex's reflexes are good because he pulls away from that real nice, but that was pretty clean. And one of the, I would say, harder shots, I think just Alex has good reflexes and started to pull out of that. But it's a good strategy. Not throw kicks, don't throw kicks, and then you're in the opposite stance of the person you're facing. Throw a super hard head kick. They tend to react a certain way, right? Because you've been throwing your rear side. Every time you throw your rear side, he's thinking, okay, he's throwing the overhand, he's throwing the cross. Now you throw the kick, he's slipping into that kick. Here is a habit that I do think Pereira has. Pereira tends to leave his hands out there after he's done a lot. So he'll throw something and kind of look at it. Like he kind of does it here for a second, but he also does it right here. So he throws this jab and he kind of leaves this jab out here. And Khalil times it, tries to throw the hook, doesn't quite get it. But what he's going to do next is he's going to throw a left hook. The problem is you've lost the foot pedal here pretty badly, right? So he is clearly beating your leg to the outside, which means if both of these guys throw at the same time, one guy's going to be inside the punch more than the other. Pereira is closer to getting hit in this situation than Khalil is, and he's going to throw a left hook and he's going to come around, and I'm sure Pereira was thinking he's going to get hit with a cross here, and he doesn't. He gets hit with the hook, and it's a pretty clean shot. Khalil loads up for a second shot, but he misses this. If I was Khalil, probably the better option would have been to reload your hips and come around or try to go to the body shot. Right after that, Khalil does have Pereira kind of on the back foot here, and what he does is really smart in my opinion. He shows his rear side and actually goes to a body kick. You should think it over the top, right? Bang, there it is, right? He shows that feint, and then Pereira's hands go where? Because he just got hit in the head, so they're coming up. Really nice clean body click, and actually I think it kind of bothers Pereira a little bit. I actually think that had a bit of an effect. They're also at altitude, so these strikes, when they're landing, are having much more of an effect to the body and legs than I think they normally would. Here is one of the few times that you probably want to have your foot inside the other person's foot. So if somebody is beating your front foot in the opposite stance, that's almost always bad, except for when you want to land the jab, right? So because you basically have lined your shoulder up straight to their face here, if they come wide at all, you're probably going to land the jab.
Khalil has most certainly got Alex's
bang right there. So you see how he kind of came around with the right hook really big, and he ended up eating the jab there. Here I think Khalil does something pretty smart. He's learning from the last thing he did. So he landed a left hook earlier to the head, and then he tried to double up on that same side. Here he's going to go for the left hand, and he's going to miss it, but he's going to go to the body shot. So that's what I said I thought he should have done last time. And you'll see him kind of show the left hand here. Boom. Right hook to the body. That was a hard shot. It's loud. He was a little off balance there, but it was super clean. And I do think that that's a shot on an opposite stance guy that is very open, especially a guy like Pereira who tends to be long guard, tends to have hands high. He gives up his body. Actually, I think this is a pretty underutilized shot, and Khalil and other guys facing Pereira could probably go to this more often. Pereira has such a open, wide guard. It's mainly to protect his head, but he really doesn't do the greatest job, and he has a long torso blocking to the body. And you're going to see Khalil just drop that cross into the body, and he could go to, I mean, these are 4-ounce gloves, and Khalil hits hard, so you get somebody who really can like hit pretty hard. That is a pretty fast and low effort technique that'll land over and over again. And right here, he goes right back to it again. Actually, lands it again. So right here, boom. Now, kind of hit him in the upper chest, but the idea is there, hitting that lead rib, hitting this spot like right in front of that forearm. Wears guys down and makes their hands come down, and you can come over the top. Again, you're the smaller guy, so you kind of got to figure out ways to get around these long arms. Normally, if you're facing the opposite stance, trying to counter a hook with the same side hook is not the best idea, because what it normally does is it puts you into the other arm that's loaded. So what you're going to see here is you're going to see Alex Pereira. He's going to throw kind of a hook and he's going to land it, and then Khalil's going to try to counter with his hook around. But the problem is I've turned and my shoulder's already in here, so now you're trying to counter over this side, which is pushing your head into my right hand, and that's kind of what happens here. So Khalil throws right after Alex's land, throw, bang, there's your counter two. So that is why normally if you end up getting hit with that lead hook off the opposite stance, the better return would have been to try to be inside of the punch by throwing your rear hand. Second problem Khalil has is when he gets into fight mode, this is where he goes, right? So his lead arm immediately drops, he comes up, and he tends to get a little square, and that makes throwing a jab to the face really easy. Boom. Super hard, clean, straight left to the face. Again, Khalil's hand will be a little bit low. Alex is going to land the jab, but Khalil comes back with the proper counter this time. He's going to come back with the rear arm, and he's going to do it twice back to back, which I think is smart, again, on the opposite stance. So Alex is going to land a jab here, nice little jab, and Khalil is going to return. That's a good strategy from Khalil, doubling up like that. He could even do one to the head, one to the body, or one to the head, hook to the body. Those would both be good options. Alex Pereira just has incredibly clean calf kicks. He gets this really, really hard to the outside and just throws him off balance. And Khalil tries to return with the lead hand, but he's just so off balance and out of position at that point. And he goes right back to it right away. A second later, he just hits it again, and Khalil's lead leg at this point is starting to really be a problem. He's having a hard time getting off of it, and his lead arm is starting to get lower and lower. So this whole front side habit is starting to become a problem for him. He's a little too heavy on the front leg to check, and his lead arm's a little too low, so he's getting eaten up with calf kicks and getting eaten up with jabs. Pereira goes right back to the calf kick once more. Very short back-to-back. Khalil comes back with a double body shot. This is actually smart to do. Problem is, I think it's a little late to start doing it in the third round. Khalil hasn't really done a whole lot of body work up to this point. Pereira does a lot of body work normally. He'll throw teeps to the body, he'll throw knees to the body, he throws hard calf kicks that slow you down, and then it forces you basically to be funneled in front of a tall, heavy hitting counter striker who's going to pressure you. Here Rountree gets a good inside leg kick. Nice. Really nice. Again, on the opposite stance, pretty easy technique to do. I do think Rountree probably should have kicked more in this fight, try to teep a little bit more. You gotta slow a guy's legs down, make him worried about coming forward. Again, Pereira just pressures. You gotta do something to stop him from feeling like he could just run you over. So stance issue right off the bat as we get tired. Khalil's weight is definitely a little more forward than Alex's. So Alex is always kind of ball of the foot here. He's in the middle of his stance, head right in the center of his body. His belly button's basically in line to the front of his face. Khalil's belly button's to the back of his head, and the front of his head is a little bit more towards the front leg. He's heavy on the front leg at this point, and also his lead arm is down. So he's making these calf kicks easier, and he's making the jabs over the top easier. Split second later, Alex Pereira lands super clean jab, and Khalil comes back trying to counter. Hitting a lot of shoulder on that, a lot of arm and shoulder. Khalil starts to get very lazy with his hands here. You're going to see it in a second. Pereira kind of throws a jab. That one kind of lands. He gets his hands up and in the way of it, but then immediately after, his habit is he squares up with his feet. He does this all the time when he's getting backed up. He did this against Anthony Smith a lot, and then he drops his lead arm and he gets jabbed over the top of it. Boom, nice clean jab. Again, you got to keep the hand up against the opposite stance, especially when they're taller than you, and especially when they hit like Pereira. Here's another example of the same issue. Khalil, when he gets tired, comes forward. Where does he end up going? He goes to this stance. He goes to this stance way too much. He gets square, drops lead hand. He's going to get double jab for this jab. And then his hand's still too low, and he's going to get jabbed again, and he tries to come back. He's not in the greatest position. Pereira is going to land a kick to the body here.
It's hard not,
which I think is really smart to do at this point in the fight, especially when you have a guy who's kind of getting beaten down. He's worried about the calf and he's worried about the jab. You go somewhere that he's not been thinking about, so you kick him to the body. One more thing to worry about, especially when your gas is starting to go. Khalil's clearly getting tired at this point. I'm going to keep highlighting it, but dropping the lead arm is going to get him jabbed right here again. Kind of gets touched on the jab, drops it again, jabbed again over the top. Here, Khalil eats a outside calf kick again. And it's hard, man. It's so hard to block that. I don't even think Khalil was in bad position for that, honestly. He just wasn't able to get his leg up in time. Pereira is just an absolute sniper with that technique. Probably his best technique of any technique he has. I know everybody talks about all these other things, but his ability to land those calf kicks super fast and super efficiently and often just really takes guys out. And also, I just think he hits it in a way that almost nobody else can quite replicate. He's the only person I know who's calf kicking guys essentially like with the side of his foot and doing that much damage. I feel like most people would probably break their foot consistently trying to calf kick how he does. This is going to be a long sequence of things. First thing is, I like what Rountree is going to do here. He's going to go for an inside leg kick. Really smart. That's the second one in the row that he's gone for in this round. I do think that's smart to go to. I don't think that's smart to go to in the fourth round. That's something you probably should have started a lot sooner.
Now he's kicking.
Right after that, Pereira comes around to guard with a jab. Pereira's going to hit him with the rear teep, something that I always think is a good strategy against the opposite stance.
Ooh, beautiful jab.
Boom, hard teep to the body. That was really, really, really nice. And then he's going to come over the top of that with the right hand because, again, I just hit you to the body on the right side. Now I'm going to come to your face on the right side with my right cross and kind of lands it. And then Khalil's looking for the return off that side. Probably would have been better to return with the other side. Alex going right back to the calf.
He can't jab as
nice little calf. He's going to reach out to the front hand of Rountree here in a second. So he's going to reach for that to kind of find his distance, and then he's going to reach out again and then take the jab. So,
he can't go to the body.
Boom, right to the inside. That's a really good strategy. So what you're basically doing is I'm touching your hand, and we're both touching hands, right? So we're kind of both bringing our hands out. We're both bringing our hands out, and then I'm bringing my hand to you, and then you're thinking that we're going to touch hands again, and then I sneak it to the inside. Just a little sneaky way to get your jab going if you are the opposite stance. Immediately after, he goes to the outside calf, and it's a pretty big, heavy calf kick, and you can see it's really starting to be an issue for Khalil. Dealing with anybody who can pick you apart from this edge scenario where you're getting jabbed up and you're getting calf kicked, not just jabbed up and calf kicked, but you're getting hit by a guy who hits as hard as he does. So any of these land, it really has an effect. Like his lightest technique has so much of an effect compared to other guys, even at his weight. So this is just it's really hard to deal with this. There's not like a great way to deal with this. Like, to be honest, against him and Ankalaev, like Ankalaev's basically going to have to pressure him straight back and turn it into a boxing match and probably wrestle. Pereira's reaching out with the lead arm. He is starting to get over the top of Khalil's hand constantly. He's also using this. He always uses this lead arm setup. He touches the lead arm to set up either his jab or his outside leg kick. He's going to hit the outside leg kick here. So touches the outside leg kick, and that is exhausting. And it kind of makes you want to drop the lead arm, and then he's going to come over the top really, really hard jab to the face. And again, a Pereira jab is like a cross for most people, so that's a hard shot. Hand position again. You can look where Pereira's at. He's beating the front foot here because Rowntree's kind of trying to protect his calf at this point. So hand's a little too low. Pereira's going to hit the jab again.
That was a big jab. Right. Rowntree's eyes just went wide.
Here, yeah. So again, the hand placement being so low is always going to be the issue. I'm going to keep highlighting that, but that's the main reason he keeps getting hit with jabs is just basically hand placement more than anything. Here you're going to notice that Alex's hand's starting to get kind of low, little gunslingy. I actually think he's doing this purposely because he's inviting exchanges. I think he wants Rountree to throw so that he can catch counters because it's a lot easier than trying to make openings on a guy who's kind of shelling up at this point. But here's a good example in reverse. Alex Pereira has lost the foot battle here, so he's lost the front foot, and he's lost the hand battle. So Rountree's actually going to land a jab here. Now, is it the hardest jab he's landed ever? No, but it was super clean, and a lot of that was because Alex positional was bad. His stance position was bad, and his hand position was bad. It's a little late, but this is a good reaction. Khalil Rountree is going to put his lead arm up high into a high guard position. When Alex Pereira jabs, he's going to catch it on a forearm and try to return with the rear hand. He's not going to land it, but this is not a bad strategy right here. Catch it and then return with the rear side. That's actually pretty close to landing. That is a really good strategy in this situation. I just think that he didn't quite go to it soon enough. Khalil Rountree is going to throw a really lazy 1-2, and then he's going to get countered with the right hand. So you're going to see it right there, really lazy on that left hand straight. So the 1-2, and then you can see Alex pulls to the side here. He slips off to the side, and he's going to look for the right hand counter, which is going to be wide open. Boom, hard shot. You don't practice dropping your hand after you punch, right? So one of the big reasons is when I throw my 2, right, I want it to be in such a way that I'm defending my face. That would be like this, so that I'm not like dropping down like this and putting my chin out. Now again, exhaustion, and you're getting beat up, so who am I to talk? But if you are going to do something like that, you probably just want to keep going that way so that you don't get countered. You're beating the front foot in this position, so he could have just kept going to his right, and that punch wouldn't have been there. Like, he could have missed and just kept slipping to that side, folding to that side. Here, Rountree starts getting lazy on what he's throwing. Now, he just got rocked, so I understand it, but he's going to get backed up, and he's going to start throwing kind of nothing shots back here, right? So right here in particular, you're going to see just a 1-2 that's kind of lazy. And then he's going to go straight back to that 1-2 and get countered with the same counter he got hit with earlier. He's going to try to throw a hook to the hook. So again, not the best option. And he's going to kind of miss that shot and get jabbed. And he's going to try to go hook again, come back. Alex pulls back, hits the 2, boom. And then he tries to throw a left over the top. Sometimes it's better to just cover and try to look for openings. Izzy is a good example of this. Izzy and Pereira's last fight, Izzy was getting hit. Pereira does tend to be a little loose with his defense. You can kind of look at this right now. When he's being offense and he thinks he's going to win, he goes all offense and very little defense. He was moving his head really, really well here. But the better move is to look for much cleaner shots while rocked. Again, saying that, after he would hit, if he hit me in the head, I would be doing anything I could to get him off of me too. I get it. If we're being super 10,000 foot analytical about this, the better option would have been to wait and just be more patient, let him kind of like try to overwhelm you, and then look for clean shots to back him up, as opposed to just throwing everything at the wall and hoping something sticks. We are going to look at some more lazy shots here to see 1-2, and he's going to throw like a really lazy 3, and he's going to get countered for his trouble. Again, throwing to throw does not help, and a lot of times the better the person is, the more at striking, the more likely they are to want you to throw when you're hurt, because the things you're doing while you're hurt are normally wrong and bad and not very fast and not very hard. So Alex is inviting these strikes because it's just giving him openings that he can easily take. And we'll watch this all again here. So it's going to be a lazy 1-2-3. Alex Pereira lands a right hand straight. Rountree's like, I'm going to get you back. Throws a big over, switches his stance into the opposite stance, and he's opening himself up pretty badly to this hook coming. And 2-3 back on that one. And then he ends up throwing a knee up the center. Boom. And then he looks for the hook, counter off that. Again, just don't throw back in this situation. You probably would be better getting on your bicycle, running side to side a little bit, disengaging or totally engaging, coming into a clench position with them. I know Rountree said he's like, I'm going to stand and bang with them. I don't know why guys keep doing this. I really don't. I'm almost under the assumption the UFC is paying these guys to stand with him. But I do think that doing something other than just standing and boxing with a guy who has your kind of number in this situation is the better choice. We're back to habits. Alex Pereira is tired, not as tired as Rountree obviously here, but you can look at certain things. Alex Pereira is on the balls of his feet. He's in the middle of his stance. His hands are a little too low, but Rountree's are very low. He tends to be a little bit more square. He's on the ball of his front foot, which is good, but he's a little more square, and he's out. Again, the high hand's going to win here. He's going to get jabbed right over the top. So Alex just brings his arm up a little bit, then he throws, and he'll drop his hand low, and then he brings his arm up a little bit, and then he throws. And he's just doing that over and over again. And Rountree's habits are showing through. He's always kind of gone to this lead arm down over his front leg repetitively in fights, and it's gotten him caught by guys, but not guys that hit and have the striking pedigree that Alex Pereira does. The power that Pereira has and the pressure is just something else. Just these shots, even on the gloves, are so rough. You know, just getting touched, and then he just cuts you off. He just pressure, just non-stop. He just will not back away. And even when you're blocking a little bit of these shots are just hard. And it's really, really hard to deal with. It's just extremely hard to deal with. At this point, especially, like, the chances of Khalil being able to win is essentially zero. He would have to catch just an absolute haymaker to win from this position. The jabs and the low kicks just added up to be too much. And once the jabs really started landing and it started busting up Khalil, everything else started to open itself up. So this is the end of the fight, but funny enough, Khalil's high guard is actually doing him some favors here, and it allows him to land some strikes back. So they end up getting into a clinch here. And Khalil high guards here, right? So he brings both his hands up to cover himself. And he actually starts getting some returns off of the high guard, right? So not the cleanest stuff in the world, but Pereira is actually letting him land some strikes here. Again, doing something like this earlier when you're fresher would be the move. You can see just having your guard up at least allows you to roll and return and get some shots off, as opposed to just kind of like dedicating yourself to these like lazy punches. It's a lot better to try to be in a position where you can maybe taking something and returning so you can get the counter because you know he's open, as opposed to trying to initiate with lazy offense, giving the other guy, Pereira in this case, the hard counters, which is what caused all of this situation to begin with. It was the lazy shots, getting backed up and then throwing lazy shots and then getting hard counter that was hurting you. I would much rather be in a scenario where I'm kind of taking or trying to roll from something in return because I know they're committed forward and I have a chance of at least landing. Here's the very end of the fight. Khalil's got a high guard up after a jab here. He's just dead. He's dead tired. Both arms down. I mean, I give him some serious credit. He really fought his ass off. But he high guards here, and then Alex Pereira goes for the obvious openings in this situation. Just smart. This is what he should do. He throws upstairs, and then he comes downstairs, upstairs. And that's a smart sequence. More of these guys, again, need to do more body work, man. They got to hit these. So many guys headhunt. They hurt somebody headhunt, and it's like, man, you hurt somebody upstairs, crack them to the body a few times, and then upstairs is wide open. Nothing ever makes somebody want to quit more than getting rocked upstairs, getting the wind knocked out of them, and then rocked upstairs again. You'll want to quit immediately. Most guys can kind of deal with one or the other, but combining those two things together, man, makes almost everybody want to quit. Well, there he is, and that's my breakdown. If I have to take somebody on the upcoming fight between Ankalaev and Pereira, I would probably take Pereira. I just think that he's had more time at the top and facing just bigger and heavier opposition overall. But Ankalaev is a legit threat. I also think just because Ankalaev gets hit to his calves so easily, somebody like Pereira can really slow that fight down over 5 rounds. I don't think Ankalaev has really gone too many 5-round fights, if I recall. I think he's had 1 or 2. Pereira is used to the spotlight. I think he's faced the best of the best at 205 for the most part. Ankalaev only being the one person I would say is outside of the hardest guys that he's faced. Yeah, I just think Pereira's hard for anybody to deal with. So unless you can like take him out with some huge shots, which Ankalaev's not really kind of a power puncher. He's more of kind of a technician, very, very, very solid technique. But he's not a big power punch guy. He's not a big volume guy. His fights can be kind of boring. With somebody like Pereira likes a slower pace in his fight because he just hits so heavy. I would guess that Pereira's going to start landing calf kicks. Maybe he loses the first or second round or both, and then he starts to kind of pick it up third, fourth, and fifth, and probably 5-round decision if I had to get. I don't think Ankalaev's easy, like you're going to take him out. But I think Ankalaev starts getting busted up as the fight goes on. Maybe he struggles. That would be my guess. I could absolutely see Ankalaev winning that fight. I think Ankalaev might be the hardest test that Pereira's ever had in the UFC, next to maybe Izzy. back when Izzy was really at his peak. And I think Ankalaev kind of has a variety of skills that could be very, very difficult for somebody like Pereira. I think Ankalaev is a little bit more patient, a little smarter about his boxing. But again, you get hit by Pereira, it matters, and it doesn't matter who you are. He really, really has some seriously heavy hands, and it takes effect. And the more he touches you, the more it really settles on you. And you can just tell it in fights when he fights people. It just wears guys down so fast. In this fight, by the time the third round came around, I pretty much knew that Pereira was going to win because I just thought, man, Roundtree's really can't keep getting hit like this. It's different when it's Pereira hitting you. That's my breakdown. Thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate it. Try to make it a lot shorter. Hopefully, this is a little bit easier to digest. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.